Hi, Lou here to talk about the answer to a Quora question about what's important in making a good game. And this question on Quora was, what are the most important aspects of a game to make it good? Is it graphics, gameplay, or features? Well, this was clearly directed to video games, but the answer is similar for tabletop, and here's my answer. It depends on what the individual buyer thinks is most important. There is no formula for a good game. So I asked, are they going to play the game, or look at the game, or talk about the game? If play is what they're going to do, then gameplay is most important. If looking at the game is most important, then graphics are most important. If they're going to talk about the game, then the features, whatever features amount to, is most important. Now, I'm interested in games in order to play them, so gameplay is most important to me. Graphics or features might be impressive, but I wouldn't buy or play a game for either one. They are window dressing only. Features actually can get in the way of good gameplay, overcomplicating a game or adding things that are not necessary. Now, of course, we have to keep in mind people disagree constantly on what a good game actually is. I think a good game can be played many times without losing its appeal. But contemporaries often play games only 1 to 3 times, exploring them and then moving on to the next one of the myriad games that are being published. And of course, video games are often made to be played just once. The player beats the game or solves the game and they're done. So what constitutes a good game to people varies a great deal. Now I'm put in mind of something John Steinbeck said about jokes. He said, good once, good twice, always good. Well, I changed that twice to thrice for games and say games are good once, good thrice, or always good. I think a good game is always good, but other people have different ideas. If your standard is good game as being played 3 times, then gameplay obviously becomes less important. Graphics, and I include in there haptics in tabletop games, that is, the feel of things, the three-dimensional part of things, becomes more important. Features become much less important because there's no room for a lot of features when you're only going to play it 1 to 3 times. On the other hand, many of the people in the play 1 to 3 times group will talk about the game a lot, often before it's actually published. Think of Kickstarter. Keep in mind also my motto from Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, who said, "A designer knows he has achieved perfection, not when there is nothing left to add, but when there is nothing left to take away." That certainly leaves features out, and might leave graphics out. On the other hand, for marketing purposes, it's really hard to convey to a potential buyer the quality of the gameplay, even though games that succeed in the long run require good gameplay. So, marketing depends heavily on graphics, which you can show, and features, which are easily talked about before the game's actually available. Think how Kickstarter works. People are buying a game while knowing nothing about how well it plays. So when selling those 1 to 3 plays games, gameplay becomes secondary. Which may be why there are so many crappy games in terms of gameplay on the market. Too often, games are primarily mental gymnastics without any obvious purpose other than to outdo the other players. They're not an intellectual competition or a model of something. Now, of course, you can try to make a game that has excellent gameplay, fine graphics, and even good features. After all, if the game is played many times, those features can be explored. But this takes a lot of work, and given the decreasing sales for individual game titles, is it worth all that work? Only you can answer that question. Keep in mind also, for tabletop games, the publisher determines the quality of the graphics, not the designer. So you can design a game and intend it to be played with three-dimensional figures that are really cool and there are lots of different poses and so on, but that doesn't mean it's going to get published that way. So, as is often the case in games, the answer is it depends on what buyers want and on what you want. Thanks for listening.